Hello. I had to look. Good morning. I didn't know if it was morning or afternoon. I hope you guys are doing well. I am looking at this like probably a cross-eyed person waiting for Monae Everett to come on here because we're going to have a really cool discussion. I don't know what it's exactly going to be about yet, but she titled our live Success Beyond the Chair. So I'm really excited to have this conversation. Hey Shannon, how are you? Hope you're doing well. I don't do lives very often anymore, so I feel like I have to keep an eye out to find out if she's gonna do an invite or whatever. But in the meantime, I hope you guys are having a good day. It's like a random day, so if you're working or at work or whatever, you're on here. So hello. Thank you, Pat. I'm feeling it. There has not been a day that I haven't felt it. And this is just getting out of the shower and putting stuff in it. There she goes. Okay. Monae's going to be joining from the Texture Style Awards page. Let me click on you real quick. Go live with you. Able to do this early. I know we had like a little scheduling something or other, so you're able to come on early, and I appreciate you, Monae. Okay, I sent that to you, so I'm waiting for you. Yeah. Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well. Instant lipstick. I love it.
Yes, I have learned to love these IG filters. So I am not afraid to use them anymore. It took me forever and I had no interest, and now I am all about them.
It saves time.
Yes, they do. One of my favorite shows growing up was The Jetsons, and it's like, we're getting there. We're getting there.
Especially with AI, but that's a whole another conversation. It's
They're
wild.
not ready for that conversation.
No.
Wait till the hairstyling world really gets taken over by AI. It's like I'm interested to see how things will change, and also not interested at the same time to see, because who knows what that's going to be.
I'm with you. I'm trying not to be like all crazy, like this is iRobot or whatever, but I'm like, we'll see how it goes. I'm open to change, but also leery. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for going live with me and allowing us to utilize your page to talk about so many great things, like just making it beyond the chair, things that hairstylists might want to do outside of working in the salon, and of course, shouting out Texture Style Awards. For those who don't know, make sure you come on over and follow Texture Style Awards, the first and only competition celebrating all 4 hair textures and the artists who slay them. And Rebecca is a judge, so woo, major thank yous.
Yeah, thank you so much for asking me and having me be a judge. I'm honored, and I can't wait to see all the submissions, and I'm so excited for it. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So I guess I should introduce myself before I start with with questions for you. So my name is Monae Everett. I'm a celebrity hairstylist, author, and educator, and the founder of Texture Style Awards, which I created to help with our diversity and inclusion issues we got going on in the beauty industry. So this should be a life-changing competition for hairstylists because I want to make hairstylists' lives better. But today, Rebecca, why don't you tell people more about yourself, because some viewers might be Texture Style Awards.
That's true. At first, I'm like, we're on my page. Hopefully people know me by now, but we're also going live, or you're going to be sharing it on Texture Style Awards. I'm Rebecca Taylor. I am an educator, colorist, a hairstylist. I've been in my profession for about 20 years, a few months shy. I've done a lot of things, worn a lot of hats. And I love our industry. I absolutely love our industry. I love my peers, and I love everything about it. But right now I'm doing a lot of things at the moment. I'm still educating. I'm behind the chair for the first time in 7 years, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that when we get into it. But I took a hiatus because I was a full-time educator and a content creator, and I didn't take clients for 7 years. So I'm back doing that in the studio. Oh, and I was a salon owner at the same time as doing all those things. So I had a lot of things going on, but chose to be back behind the chair taking clients, and I actually love it again. I mean, I feel like that's the root of sometimes what we do, what I needed to get back to anyway. And I've been coaching and mentoring in the space of just more than technical education the last 6 months or so. And I love that. Everything I got my, what is that saying called? Your finger in the pot?
Yeah,
Whatever.
yeah,
I got,
yeah.
yeah. Everything I'm doing right now, I love equally. And I feel like I'm still not overextended. But anyway, I'm getting probably into our conversation. But that's who I am.
Well, blessings on to you, Rebecca. That is what so many hairstylists are pining to be able to say. They're pining to be able to say, oh my God, I love every part of what I do. Well, if you've ever caught a live with me, you know I am not too shy to say, give us some hearts, give us some likes. That's the only way Instagram knows we're talking about something you care about. So give us some hearts and likes and share this live, because we have uber successful Rebecca here, and we're about to get all into her business to figure out how did she become so successful. So I am going to just jump in with some questions, okay?
We're going in.
We're going
Okay.
in. And what is the biggest gamble you've ever taken on yourself?
Oh my gosh.
See, you weren't expecting that one.
No, there's no preparation. Monae sent me no, like,
Nope.
nothing, the title of this. So, man, I feel like I've taken many, honestly, and I've needed to in order to get any level of success.
Yeah.
I feel like if I played it too safe, I probably wouldn't have been able to do the things that I've been able to do the last 20 years. It's really hard to say just one, but I will
Give
say
us a few.
I will. I'll tell you one that's like kind of different than just like success and, you know, we are what we do and whatever. But like one of the biggest gambles I took was like completely pumping my brakes on going so hard in our, you know, like what I do for work. About 2.5 years ago, to focus on myself for a minute and like my mental well-being and just reevaluate what I was doing, because what I was doing with work was just like more, better, achieve, you know, and that was starting to feel kind of like empty. You know, I was like, I was desensitized. It was great, you know, I was grateful, but I was starting to get desensitized and it took a toll on my mental health. So yeah, about 2.5, 3 years ago, I just like, it was not really intentional. It was like the pandemic, you know, but like it was a catalyst for it happening and I really dove in. And now it made me appreciate like what I do for work more, and I had my whole values sorted out, and like what are my values. So that was probably the biggest gamble. Was like it was scary because I was like, is everything that I built gonna go away because I'm taking this time off? And it hasn't. You know what I mean? Just that was very scary to me. Biggest gamble, yeah. But it all paid off. So, you know, you gotta, what is, you know, without risk, there's no reward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, wow, that sounds really scary, and it sounds very brave to be able to do, because, yeah, we may have been home for the pandemic, but most of us were still in fight or flight and trying to figure out other things. And how brave of you to say, you know what, I might need this pause to take a minute and focus on me. So, you know, that is wonderful. And it's great advice to other people to kind of take a step back and look at where you are and say, is this working for me? What do I need to do to get to a place where it's working better for me? Mm-hmm. So I love that, because if the mental is not right, it's hard to go on to anything else. So you said you had a few. We'd love to hear another if you'd like to share.
One that comes to mind too is just putting myself out there initially on social media. Like that platform for me way back in the days was MySpace, you know, so it wasn't a whole lot of video, but it was like putting your work out, and that makes you vulnerable because it's open to critique. So I began there, and then it transferred over to Facebook, and then Facebook, if I remember correctly, you could like show more of yourself, and then eventually videos, and then the big one was, you know, Instagram, because a lot more video and stories and stuff like that. So a big gamble was just, you know, trying to get out of the voice in your head, the imposter syndrome, and just do it anyway, you know, because a lot of my opportunities have come from sharing myself on large platforms, and then that platform growing and building a community, but just really getting out of my own way and getting out of my own head and just saying, I mean, I can say this because it's my platform, I'm gonna fuck it, you know what I mean? What's the worst that's gonna happen? You're gonna, and then failure, I feel like, just builds character anyway. So that was a big one. A gamble was just putting myself out there initially.
Awesome. how did you overcome, you know, do you even remember the first time you got a rude or nasty comment, but one, not one from like a troll that you knew was crazy, one that had a little truth in it? Do you remember what it was and how did you work through that?
There've been so many because I've been at it, like I said, from MySpace. But I remember, it's funny you mentioned this. I still vividly remember my first nasty comment, and I didn't know how to appreciate the feelings of criticism because you're scared that it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And then when it's like, oh, then you gotta like feel it, move through it, and like see if you're gonna react or not. And I remember I was working for Joico. It was the first line that I ever worked for as like a brand educator. Before independent education like is what it is. But I was like, I had entered, and it's funny we're talking about texture style awards. I had entered one of my styles into this competition they were doing, and it had a lot of synthetic hair, and it was very like intricate and had a bunch of like brunette shades. And someone was just like, "That looks like literal shit." That's what they said. And I was just like, oh, I put so much time and effort into that. And that was my submission. And I was just devastated. I clapped back. I was like, how dare you? You don't know how much time it takes to put into it.
You don't know me?
Yeah.
You don't know my life?
Pretty much. I was pretty volatile for some time. And that was definitely before I got to know more about social media and like when to react and how to react. And like, you can't take a stand on everything because you're just left depleted. And it's kind of futile to have a battle of words with someone, a keyboard warrior, you know what I mean? It just, whatever. But I was like, oh no, I'm going in. How dare they? You know what I mean? But that was the very first negative comment I got, was like that. And then from there, and then it's happened. I've had stuff, you're talking about maybe when I got one that had some truth to it.
Yeah, not the absolute troll, but the one that kind of hits home a little because it has to make you think a bit.
Well, that has a lot to do with like self-reflection and what is someone's like impression of what they think about you or not. And that's just how I have to like sit with things. I can't think of anything specific, but like if something resonates and it's like, ooh, that makes you look at things differently. That's just, and I've gotten way better at this kind of processing the last couple of years, just because of all the work that I've done with like mental health and everything, the clarity that I have. But like that, ultimately, if it resonates with me, I have to get back to the place of who cares what people think, and if it is something that I truly need to change because it like struck a chord, then that's inner work that I need to do. But like not letting all that noise and that static in from the outside, because everybody's going to have an opinion. One person might love you, one person might hate you, and it's just like, who cares? It's really about what I think about myself and how I operate and how I move in this world. So I can't think of anything specific, but self-reflection is great, and having the clarity to know like, is this something I should fix, or no, I'm good the way I am. That's the key right there.
Well, we have always loved watching your work, but the glow up over the last couple of years has been outstanding. So we could tell you were doing a little something extra over there.
A lot of all the somethings for sure.
Wonderful. So you mentioned that you submitted some work in a competition and that you ended up working with Joico. Was there a relation there?
Well, that was like, I was fresh out of Cosmo school. I was at a year and a half, just behind the chair. So I was baby, I was a green stylist. And back in the day, to get education opportunities, it would be in the back of trade magazines, like classified. So I remember they were looking for educators, and I think it was in the back of a Behind the Chair magazine or something. So I like reached out to them, emailed them. They sent me to somewhere in South Florida. I was in Northwest Florida. They sent me to South Florida to audition, and the requirement was 2 years. But based on like my audition, I'd never publicly spoken. I had never been an educator, because I mean, a year and a half out of hair school, who are you educating when you're not even fully educated, But they were the first brand or education opportunity, and I would say that's a lot of my foundational education and being able to publicly speak. And I was with them for like 7 years, and then moved on straight after that to independent education, because what was happening is that it was very branded, so you're feeling very robotic and product knowledge and stuff. And then when I left, people were like, do you still do classes? And do you do your own classes? And I'm like, what is that? You know, it was unheard of back then.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It was a hot minute ago. You know what I mean? Like something, not 23 years ago, like 13 years ago or whatever. But I was like, why can't I? Why wouldn't I? And so I just, started my own format and curriculum. And that's where the whole independent education thing started. But your lash, I was like, your lash is on your hair. That's funny. Sorry. I have no internal dialogue. Sorry, Monae. Yeah, that was my first brand, was Draco. And I've worked with many over the years.
That's awesome. A lot of stylists say they want to do things like platform artistry or working with a brand. Would you say that someone entering a hair competition, that might be a helpful way to get started on that path?
I feel like I said, it gave me a lot of foundational knowledge. It really did. Starting from, no, I don't want to say, I mean, nowhere, with no background in education. It provided me with like that strong kind of know-how. I'm like, how am I gonna, facilitate a class? How am I going to calm my nerves to speak in front of people? And then also a lot of the, of course it's very branded, so I learned their way, but I got a lot of education in like science and, color theory and all of that. And they provide that for you. And back then they provided it. They paid for you to go and everything. You didn't get paid anything to do a hair show or anything like that. But like, I think it's important. It might help, but it's not necessary, because right now the climate of the industry there's so many independent educators, and another stylist will see, and follow somebody online and be like, oh my God, I love their stuff, and want to learn from them, and maybe don't need all of that like super brandy kind of really like they like the organic feel of taking a class from someone. So I feel like the balance of two would be great. Just get it, it just depends on your comfort level. Depends on what you want to do with your education career.
Yeah, so there's definitely not a requirement to work for a brand to be an educator by any means. But there are a lot of people who do want to work for brands and who do want to be educators for brands. So I'm really proud of one of the things that you win in Texture Style Awards is mentorship from a brand representative. I feel like that can be absolutely career changing, because maybe you'll find out you want to work with this brand. Maybe you'll find out you want to create your own brand. But it puts you in a place to learn and grow, to at least find out, because there are so many artists that are working behind the chair with dreams and they have no idea which step to take first. So if you were put in a position where you can create relationships with major brands and you can make the decision on who you want to work with, I think that just can be absolutely awesome and career changing for you.
I would agree too. And to your point, like getting in with a brand, like there's like a sense of community. There's that. I'm thinking about like the different brands that I've worked with over the years. It gives you more education opportunities that they facilitate. So you can go to the big hair shows. You could possibly be on the stage at like Premiere Orlando or IBS Vegas or, ABS Chicago. And that's all facilitated by the brand. It's possible being independent, but it's not as easy as if you're backed by a brand. So there are pros and cons, there are benefits, and I definitely think it's a good way to get your foot in the door if you're passionate about education.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'll actually be headlining IBS Vegas, so I'm super excited about that. And it's been many years to get there because I wasn't representing a brand, so I wasn't offered, the opportunities to educate at the huge shows like your Premiere or Orlando or ABS or anything like that. Before I was with a brand. But now, got my own education, so I'll be in IBS Vegas. Okay, so you've entered hair competitions before, and we're so proud to have Texture Style Awards, where you can enter there at the website texturestyleawards.com. What tips would you give someone who is interested in entering a hair competition, but they're a bit nervous?
Well, we talked a little bit about the criteria, that the awards are looking for, Texture Style Awards are looking for submissions. So I feel like I'm going to get to like the mental part of it in a second. But like if you really want to prepare, and that will help with the mental because you'll feel prepared.
Yeah.
Just like read the rules you said, because there are like there's criteria and there's categories, and like a big
Mm-hmm.
make sure your imagery is on point. Just really focus on the little details, you know, like the little details, because if you're taking the time to submit your imagery, then this is like where you really spend all that time and effort. And you and I were talking, and like when you're taking a photo, make sure there's like a solid
Yeah.
background, or you take that first client out of the chair. Just, you know, think of this as like your version of editorial to submit for.
Mm-hmm.
And then just like the structure and the composition of your style, that kind of thing. So if by doing all of that and you know the rules and you are more confident, then that already gives you a leg up, because then it's not like, oh God, what am I doing? I'm gonna fail. Why am I doing this anyway? Because you're like, no, I've got a really good chance because I put all my effort into this. I'm passionate about it. This shit looks really good. It's really solid.
Mm-hmm.
Be less like, oh, I'm about to submit and be judged, and you know, my peers, and what if I lose? Because that can happen. I mean, that does happen. I feel like
Yeah.
stylists just get in our own head a lot, especially by the work that we produce, because we're artists, and artists are sensitive. I know I am. I'm
Keep in
sensitive.
mind, yep, absolutely. We all are, and I'm so happy that your first tip is to read the directions. In 2021, when we did the competition, so many people got lower scores because they didn't submit their image on a solid background. And sometimes it was really nice work, but you know, sometimes we could see people's feet in the background of the picture. We could see cords, we could see clothing tags, or you know, bobby pins were falling out of the hair, or most importantly, they didn't follow the main rule, which is enter the category of the final hair texture. We have no idea what hair texture you started with. We only know how you ended. So take Rebecca's beautiful curly hair that she has right now. For all we know, this hair could have started completely straight and it could have been created with a curling iron. So now it appears curly, so you enter the curly competition. Or let's say you have a model with super coily hair and you straighten that hair out and then you put it up, and now it's the straight updo category. So just reading the directions will put you a mile in front of everyone else.
Yep, I know. You already have a leg up then.
Yep.
If you checked all the boxes, and it's just like, you have more chance. And yeah, what you said, what we both said.
Okay, so that was a good tip, to read the directions. It sounded like you wanted to say a couple more things.
Mm, I kind of touched on it, you know, talking about the fear of the unknown, or the fear of judgment and all of that. But I mean, you're taking it's courageous to enter a
Yeah.
competition like that. You know, if what's the worst that could happen? You know, you're no better off than when you didn't submit if you don't win. But it's like that, little steps like that are big steps, honestly,
Yeah.
by putting yourself out there. And it's exposure either way. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They're probably going to be in a list of the other people that have submitted. So it's exposure. It just flexes that muscle of you creating in the salon, of you taking photos, of you putting yourself out there in a situation that doesn't feel safe. All of our like challenges mentally, but they just make you stronger in the long run.
So true, so true. It's like you're moving in the right direction. You can only have progress.
Yeah.
It's up to you whether you want to sprint in the right direction or take small steps in the right direction. But the bottom line is, baby, you're moving in that right direction. And you know, you brought up being courageous. So whenever that word is said, I always have to tell this story. My mom and I did not have the world's best relationship growing up, and we are like best friends now. And so can I get some hearts and likes, especially if I'm out here sharing my personal
Yeah. Real talk. No,
real talk now. So one of the things that helped us to really get better was, I remember her calling me on my 30th birthday. I was out of town and working because, you know, what else would I be doing? And she said, oh my goodness, I was watching this Oprah special today. And I said, okay, what'd they say? She said, Oprah says that people work literally in two houses, either comfort or courage. And she said, overwhelmingly, people work in comfort. They do what they used to. They do what they know. She said, me and most of my family, we operate and comfort. You know, the point was to get comfortable, to work, to get comfortable, to do this, to do that, to get comfortable. And she said, I'm now realizing the issues that you and I have had are because you always work in courage. And I don't really know people who operate in courage. You're very courageous. Everyone that I know, we take a little step here and there out of our comfort zone, but overall, we are in that comfort zone. And she said, you are always encouraged, so you're always being courageous. And it's difficult for us to bond because nothing about you is like the rest of us. And I was like,
that's insightful.
I don't know about it. Was very insightful, and I thought, wow, I don't know if I've ever felt more understanding. That was literally the first major building block of our relationship growing, because she was able to, probably for her and me, get to the literal core of the issue. You ever have issues with someone and you can't figure out why? Well, what is the issue? Why is there constantly something? And I think that was eye-opening.
Big time. Same, with my mom, like, we butt heads, whatever, for years. And our core was just, and this has only been the last 2-3 years, is like, we had to come to like an acceptance thing.
Yes.
Like I accept that XYZ and happened and you were as could have been, and whatever is accepted, that it's just acceptance. And now, like you and your mom, my mom and I have a great relationship. I never saw that happening. And it's just accepting the other person, whether or not it's your mom, and it's a mom-daughter relationship, and that dynamic can be really wild sometimes. But like, if you can do it with a mom-daughter relationship, I feel like acceptance and like that middle ground, I feel like you can see eye to eye with anybody.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think mom is a great example, because that's pretty much the one that it's very difficult to find a replacement for. In your mind, anybody else really can come and go. I mean, sometimes it feels like even siblings can come and go, but not mom, you know? So I brought that up because when you are thinking about stepping outside of the box, when you're thinking about taking photos of your work to enter a competition, when you're thinking about maybe even doing a photo shoot to enter, and you go and you talk to your other friends in the salon, or you talk to family members and they don't encourage you, sometimes they don't have it in them to encourage you. The path that God gave you, he did not give to them. So what happens many times is you just need that support. And sometimes people aren't able to give it to you. That doesn't mean you stop. That means you lean more into your courage. As we keep saying, you are only moving in the right direction. Movement is good. It doesn't matter how fast or slow you go, but just know that they'll all meet you at the finish line to say how proud of you they were and how they always knew how great you would be when you win. They're not there for the journey most of the time, but they'll show up for the celebration, and at least you'll have somebody to celebrate with.
That's so true. That is so true. I feel like the motivation sometimes, at least for me, has a lot of the times been like an internal source of it. Like getting started, especially like getting started. I was like self-motivated for sure. Like I can't rely on like a cheerleading squad. You know, it'd be great if they're there. That's great if you have a supportive like family unit or friends or whatever. But if you let that outside stuff, if it's not what you want it to be, or you think you need it to be, affect you, you won't ever go too far, because you like, that's what's fueling you instead of like what's in here fueling you.
Yeah, even if you're lucky enough to have a cheerleading squad, what happens if they miss the bus or the bus breaks down on the way? Do you not play the
I know.
Yeah, so even if your crew has the best of intentions, it is not possible for them to always be there for you. So we want you to keep pushing yourself, keep pushing. Texture Style Awards entries are open through June 30th. We have 10 categories, so 8 are for pros. You have straight hair, wavy hair, curly hair, and coily hair. Up style and straight hair, wavy hair, curly hair, and coily hair. Down style. So that is 8 categories I just explained. And then we have 2 student categories, student up style and student down style. categories to be considered a student. That's if you're in cosmetology, if you're an apprentice, if you are working on set, you're not licensed, or if you're newly licensed and been working under 2 years. The prizes are thousands of dollars in products and tools, one-on-one mentorship with the individual brand for your category. You also get private event invites. So all of those events that you see, like the top who's who posting about on Instagram, you're like, I didn't even know that was happening. You'll be getting those invites. You'll also be featured in tons of different publications like Read the Teas and so many others. So we have amazing prizes for you. We want this to be life-changing. We consider it a semi-professional competition because you're able to take your own images. We want to make it really inclusive. We don't want someone to sleep on themselves and their amazing work because they're not able to put together a photo shoot. Take your own image on a solid background. I'm also doing classes to help everyone learn how to style different hair textures. I did one on curly hair on Monday. This Monday is going to be on straight hair styling, how to really build that shape, create the style, and take your own images. You can find out about that at texturestyleawards.com/classes. The final texture classes will be June 12th on coily hair, so that's going to be lit. You can come and join us in person in Soho. The tickets are only $115. You get $250 worth of products and tools in the gift bag, including a curling wand from BioIonic, or you can watch virtually. And that's texturestyleawards.com/classes. The courage it takes to randomly bust out into your own commercial in the middle of a conversation should never go unnoticed.
I was remembering. I'm really, really impressed. That's really, really good.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So how did you know it was time for you to stop working behind the chair?
Well, I'm still behind the chair.
Well, you went back, but you talked about a break where you were not behind the chair.
That was just a progression of opportunities. That was not like, oh, I want to stop doing hair. That was the time frame of when I moved from Florida to Los Angeles. And at the time I was like educating full time, like traveling internationally 2 times a month, and then domestically probably another 2-3 times. So it was like impossible. So when I moved out here, I just never tried to build a clientele. So it was the end of me closing my salon, leaving those clients anyways because I was moving, and then just this progression of opportunities. And then I think what's maybe, I don't know, like maybe because that's a really unique, odd situation to have happen. You know what I mean? It wasn't necessarily a choice. It was a choice to move from Florida to California, but it wasn't like I'm going to stop doing hair now because I'm burnout or whatever else. It was just like opportunity. But like, I would say if I could like pose another question, I don't know. Do you have another question? I don't know if I have another question. Based on that, do you have other ones?
Well, I am just asking around because I get so many questions in my DMs about different things that hairstylists can do that may not be working behind the chair. And it's interesting that our stories are similar. I started out my career in the DC area and I became an educator, and they ended up closing my division. So I had left the salon because I was a full-time educator, but then they were closing my division. So I had to like figure out what I was going to do. And I had always wanted to move to New York. So when I moved to New York, I was like, the one thing I'm not going to do is build a clientele and work in a salon in New York, because I love doing hair and I love taking clients. But I felt like if I'm moving to a major city, like I could stay in the DC area and work in a salon, but I wanted to see what opportunities New York had for me. And I did not believe that that was working behind the chair. I would call salons because I did float the idea. And they would say in New York, regardless of, at that time, I don't know if this is still the case, regardless of, and can we get some hearts and some likes? What's going on this live, guys? Come on, give us some hearts and some likes. Share this out. They would say when I would call the salon, regardless of how long you have been a stylist, you have to assist for just above minimum wage. at a salon in New York for 2 years first because they didn't trust new artists to come and work in their salon. They figured you were just going to come and go, and they refused to give you clients. And the salon pricing, like what these salons were charging, were probably 5 times what I'm used to a salon charging, but they would only want to pay the stylist 20 to 30%.
That's not right.
And to whomever it works for, okay, I know New York is far more expensive to pay for overhead and things of that nature, but I was like, so you mean to tell me you're going to charge them 5 times more and I'm going to make less after 2 years of assisting for minimum wage when I've been a stylist for, at that time, I don't know, many years. You get my point? I was like, I can't really get with this.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know how this is working for you, stylists. You know, it was not my ministry, we'll say that. Speaking of ministries, I know that you are broadening your horizons and you are trying to get people, and especially hairstylists, to understand that there is more than working behind the chair. You want to talk about some things that you have going on right now?
Yes. I feel like if I wouldn't have done what I've done first on my like professional, no, not professional. Why is that like the go-to? My personal growth, in like the last several years, and like noticed such a huge, like profound change in like how I'm able to chill out. I wasn't able to chill out before, you know what I mean? I don't experience burnout anymore. I've completely, now that I am behind the chair again, I was able to completely rebuild like the whole notion of like I can get the exact kind of clientele that I want. I don't have to deal with any red flag situations.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of work, a lot of work. And since I noticed such a change, I feel like their technical education is great. I'm still like a technical education at heart, but because I noticed such a change in my life and the way that I'm able to run my business now, I'm like, I want to supplement, or I don't know, adapt my education to also offer more like mentoring and coaching. And then I've got certified in like a people pleasing like whole course and like boundaries course, and formed and really put in the time and effort to create like I don't know if I'd call it curriculum, but just like this whole way that I'm able to share with another peer, is generally stylist, but somebody else, how you can be super happy with what we do and like in and out of work. Because I know the stigma, or just like this normalized way in our industry, is like it's normal to get burnout. Like it's normal because we don't take all this time for ourselves. And it's like totally normal for us to stand up and shovel food in our mouth if we eat it all, and like find caffeine and all this stuff, like because we're wacky hairdressers. I'm like, that doesn't have to be the normalized in our industry. And that's how I was prior to that 7 years doing hair behind the chair, and it was normal. But since I'm able to like do this work and notice a shift and like build this clientele since I moved, because I moved from Los Angeles to a town called, you're gonna love this, Rancho Cucamonga. It's fun.
I know Rancho Cucamonga.
Yeah.
I know that town.
Well, they're like, what is that real? Yes. So I just moved to a mountain town. I like had to change a lot of things and do a lot of work, but I'm doing hair, built this clientele from scratch because it was 7 years of not. And I'll be honest, having a social media platform doesn't give you like an automatic in for clients. You think that, oh, you have a platform. Not all of those 610,000 people live in Rancho Cucamonga or surrounding areas. So I like had to learn and like do it like the old fashioned way, more or less, you know, build a clientele, but I'm able to do it with all these healthy like things that I've implemented. And I'm like, I don't put up with shit. I charge what I'm worth. I don't work crazy hours. Like this week I worked 21 hours and I made enough. Let's just say that. I mean, I'm transparent about my pricing, but I'm not working myself like crazy like I was before. And because I'm able to do that for myself, I feel like that's something that I want to share.
You know what? That was leading towards a closing question, but you said something that I felt was really important for stylists. You talked about your boundaries. Are there a couple that you feel comfortable sharing?
Oh, that's so loaded. I could talk about this for an hour. There's so many boundaries in so many different areas. It's just really something that makes you feel like you have to negotiate some core part of yourself. And so it can be so many different things, but it's just now being vocal about it and not letting someone else's like potential reaction or like, oh, I perceive that they're going to react negatively. And a lot of my stuff comes from being like a former hardcore people person, and all of that stuff is like, all of that is trauma responses from like younger and then as stuff goes on. But like working on that stuff, I can audibly and, calmly say what my boundaries are and know that it's totally fine for me to feel that way and act that way and be that way and communicate all of those to another person, whether it's a client, a friend, a stranger, whatever, because I know like I'm right in my action beliefs.
I love that. I love that. And I'm happy that you touched on, you might have a large following, a very large following, but that doesn't always ensure clientele. I think people are now starting to learn that having a huge following is helpful, and it can be lucrative if you know how to work it. Sometimes you develop a large following of people who like looking at you. And that's not the same as people who want to come in, buy from you or spend time with you or be your client or follow you at a show. So I'm happy that you pointed that out, and you're really opening hairstylists' eyes to other things that happen. The world, the beauty world, the hairstyling world is bigger than simply working behind the chair. So I guess, and we've been talking towards this the whole time, are there any quick tips that you can give somebody that they can take into account for when they're feeling like maybe I want to do something other than work behind the chair? Any things that they should look at in themselves or consider before making a move?
Um, there's so many avenues and options in our industry. And if we're speaking strictly like, okay, stay in this industry, not like, kick rocks and go be a goat farmer or something like that. My plan.
I heard they had fun.
I know. No. Anyway, if you want to stay in this industry, there are so many different like outlets for different things that you can do besides like taking clients and working behind the chair. Some of those require you to show up on social media. You know what I mean? If you want to go the independent education route, if you want to work with brands in like a content creation way, or having contracts with them and not manufacture education. A lot of times, even now, I've heard in order to be a like branded educator, like a manufacturer educated person, even then they kind of require you to have some sort of presence online.
Yeah.
So I feel like getting out of your own way and practicing and getting easier. What's that?
That's my book called Get Out of Your Own
What?
Way.
I didn't even know that. See?
Yeah, girl, I got 2 books. Ooh.
Read about how to do that in Monae's book. And we wrote a book about it. So it's obviously an issue. We get in our own way. I'm still guilty of it a lot, And so but I have tools and I have ways to think rationally and to be like, okay, truth is, whatever. I have all these like modalities now that help me get out of my own head and out of my way. But like you are going to have to take that first step to put yourself out there, because if you're just in your salon taking your clients, never ever putting yourself out there, it's kind of limited. You really are limited with your options if you aren't like putting yourself out there in your community, in our industry. So it's a mental thing, and you've got to do your best to get over that and figure out what's the root of it. And like I said, generally, not to get all like therapeutic whatever about it, but they generally are trauma responses. They're like rooted in self-worth or fear or judgment of other people. All of it really has to do with like self-worth. Like you're not good enough, you're not gonna be good enough. But if you start working on that kind of stuff, it really will get you over a lot of major hurdles.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just so right. You're so right. You may be comfortable for a little while, but it takes some courage to do the things you want to do. I am just looking through these comments, and so many people love you. If you guys have any questions or anything, please throw them in the chat as we are coming to a close. Oh, they just love you. Oh my goodness, Rebecca.
Oh, I didn't even look, but I did get a question. Ray of Sunshine wanted to know what made you stop being a brand ambassador. That's a good one. So I have taken like a year plus, about a year plus hiatus off. I was working with a smaller SoCal based brand after like 5 or 6 years with Redken, and Redken is like full on, you know what I mean? It was like all I could talk about, a lot of education. It was a really tight community, really tight culture. And after Redken, it was that smaller independent. I mean, anyway, it's a smaller brand. And so I was like, after that sort of situation ended, I'm like, I'm going to be free agent for a while. I'm going to use, I'm going to say what I want to say. And to be honest with you, after 15 years of being like hardcore with social media, hardcore, you know, and I think it kind of took that for me to get to where I am.
Yeah.
I was like, I need a break. I need a break, you know what I mean? And that's where I'm at right now with my break and kind of figuring out. I'm not saying I never will again, because again, I like that, like the culture of certain brands, and I really like the opportunity to like educate in different places. But I've taken a brand ambassador, content creator hiatus for the last, I'm still in that year. So we'll see where it goes. I mean, one thing has to happen when I'm working with a brand. Obviously, I have to love the product. I have to. It has to perform. I have to like it. I can't talk about like or use. And then the other thing has to be like, they have to have like a solid culture and community. Like if they're talking about some whack ass stuff or doing some whack ass things, I'm like, oh.
Yeah, no, that contract has to say that brands always love to put you in a contract that says you better not embarrass me or we'll fire you.
Yeah.
Well, hell, sometimes we got to tell them you better not embarrass me or I'm going to fire you too, because these brands saying do some things, baby.
Yeah, I know. And I'm surprised I got away with as much as I did being affiliated with brands for as long as I was, but cool. Shout out all of y'all for keeping me involved. But you know, it's tough, like you said, with contracts, because there are legal things involved when you sign a contract to be like heavily involved with a brand. But that's again why I'm chilling with this hiatus. I feel a free agent for the moment. Feels really nice after, like I said, it's been 15 years heavily showing up on social media, and at least 10 years being locked into some sort of contract, and not like locked in a bad way, you know, because I signed that, I'm not gonna lie, but there are like, I don't know, for me mentally it was just like, because I've signed this, because I'm in this position, I have to show up, I have to perform.
Yeah.
Performative, and right now I'm just chilling.
Well, and it goes to show how solid you are and how great of a reputation you have built with brands as well as on social media, that you're able to take your well-deserved hiatus and still have your platform to come back to. And I love that you're taking time to help and mentor other artists. It's great for those of us who are able to help and mentor other artists, to help move the beauty industry the way that we feel it should go, and you know, be the person that we were looking for when we were looking for these type of mentors. So Rebecca,
And before you close this out, say
yes.
to you what you just said. You got to get your flowers too for doing everything you're doing and creating this Texture Style Awards, for just these opportunities for stylists that want that exposure and want the opportunity. So give yourself a pat on the back, because you're making moves and doing big things too. You always have. And I think you're great.
Thank you, girl. We work out here. They don't. If only you guys knew. I wish sometimes that when I was leaning into these courageous things that just come naturally to me, that sometimes I took the amount of work into consideration. I think God is always like, go ahead, girl, go ahead with that dream. Sure. No. We'll tell you about the work later. You just get started.
Yes, exactly.
But it's okay. It works out. I want to be respectful of your time. I know you have another appointment coming up shortly. So I sincerely thank you for taking time to chat with me and lending your platform for the message. And most importantly, being a Texture Style Awards judge. And thank you for how you're helping the industry. I am going to end here, and we'll come back and snatch this live down and put it over there. If you could leave it up for just a few hours, and then we'll take care of that. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, Monae.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
I'll see you soon. Bye, guys.